This is the Evan Ginzburg Show at VillageConnectionRadio.com. Jim Savali, our owner-engineer at the helm. And today we are going to have an independent music, independent film, independent TV special. And we're going to show some live videos from some great performers of all genres. And we're also, in just a few minutes, going to interview Brady Novotny out of Pittsburgh, a virtuoso guitarist. And we're going to open with his video, Passions Collide. And in just a few, an interview with Brady. All right, and we are back with Brady. Brady, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on today.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And we want to thank Michael Stover from MTS Management Group for setting this up. And Brady, you have an awesome sound, virtuoso guitarist. Tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania here. Been playing the guitar since I was 10 years old, 11, 10, somewhere around there. And, been playing my whole life, basically. But this is my first album that has my name on it. I'm usually playing on other people's records. So this is my first debut album.
So, as a kid, were you one of these guys who would go into the garage and rock out, or was it a little more formal than that?
Oh no, we all start out the same in the bedroom and in the basement, and running home after school and playing guitar and playing in bands and stuff like that. So yeah.
So when you see these TV shows where they find a new star and they're on Main Street, they're on primetime TV. I mean, that's not very realistic, is it? I mean, a lot of these guys just don't make it, even the winners.
Yeah. I mean, it's great probably for Facebook likes and YouTube likes, but you still have to work. You have to get out there, build a fan base and
hone your craft.
Yeah, I mean, just because you play a cover song on a TV show doesn't mean that you can actually write music. So
exactly,
it takes time, and experience really.
And as a guitarist, I'm sure Hendrix and Clapton and the usual suspects are among your influences. But what about some of the great jazz guitarists like Wes Montgomery? Who are some of the people that have influenced you?
Well, I did study jazz a little bit later on in life. At first, it was wanting to learn all the Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, Ozzy, all those songs. But as I kind of grew into the guitar playing, learning all this stuff, you want to stretch your limits a little bit. And so yeah, I mean, Joe Pass was a guy. There was so many, and then I got into the fusion stuff. So that was like Larry Carlton, all those guys. I mean, there's so many out there.
John McLaughlin.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the big I forget what his name is. When you're on the spot, sometimes you can't think of all the names of the people. But yeah, I mean, there's so many great guitar players. And then I actually went into, jazz was really cool, but I actually my ear went to more of the flamenco sound. So Strunz and Farah, they're a big guitar duo out there. I mean, it's that rumba Latin guitar playing. Has really kind of caught my ear. So yeah.
So I know with singers there's an awful lot of ageism, but as a guitarist making a debut album later in life, I mean, is it the same issues involved? I mean, can you break through when you're not a kid anymore?
I don't. Yeah, I think nowadays anymore everyone's kind of just. I mean, even in my hometown, I mean, you have all these 70s and 80s groups still touring through the city. Right. So it seems like age isn't really a factor anymore. The record companies made it a factor, but I think now, unless you're a pop star, I think you have to have that young image. But as a guitar player or as a violin player or something like that, as long as your music works and you have somewhat of an image, I think you can still have fans.
We have a virtuoso avant-garde jazz guitarist, Carsten Radke, out of Germany. He's going to be doing the show in August, and we're going to show some of his work later in this show. So as a guitarist, you must check this guy out, because he's a master coming from a different place, avant-garde jazz player. Yeah.
Sure.
So what do you consider some of your career highlights?
This one especially, it's been a long time in the making. I recently we got to open up for one of my guitar heroes. His name was Paul Gilbert. So here in Pittsburgh, when he came through, we got to open up for him. So that was a big deal for me as a musician. I went to a little bit of time. I went to Berklee College of Music up in Boston. That was a highlight. I traveled with a lot of bands and stuff, around the country, and those days were fun. But doing your own stuff, that's takes a lot of guts to put your own stuff out there rather than doing other people's. So that's what I'm most excited about this.
And tell folk how they could pick up the new CD.
Sure, you can find it just about everywhere. On my website, of course, www.bradynovotny, novotny.com, and on there, there's links to everything. My YouTube, social media, and on that site, you can find the downloads and even the physical copies, and of course, even on Spotify. Just type my name into Spotify if you want to check it out. It's right there.
And you're also an educator. And what would you tell a young musician coming up? What advice would you give?
Well, to just keep at it, because nowadays, a lot of our attention is so everything's wanting us to pay attention to other things, and sometimes you have to go back to that. I'm going to practice in my room. Hone my craft and really put the time in, because we get kind of too distracted nowadays and wanting to go here and there. But if you put the time in, I think you can accomplish what you want. And it's really about a mental thing too. Knowing, especially later on in life, if you're starting out, you have to get past all the thing of am I too old to do this or whatever. So just focus and know what you want to do and accomplish it.
I'm going to recommend somebody to you who you may or may not know. His name was Chuck Brown, the king of go-go out of D.C. And Chuck Brown would flawlessly mix R&B, jazz, hip-hop, while playing guitar and singing with heavy percussion behind him. And he would just jam for hours, hour after hour. And I love this man with all my heart. He died a few years ago. He was about 75 at the time. But Chuck Brown, a guitarist who could play any genre of music. Very impressive.
Oh, sure. I'll definitely check him out.
Yeah. And you're also a therapist and a sex therapist at that. Am I correct?
That is correct.
And that's an interesting field. What if you don't mind talking about it? I mean, we're an arts program. We cover a little of everything. What are some of the most common problems besides impotency, of course?
Say I get a lot of marriage issues, of course. I mean, that's always going to be a big thing.
Sleeping with the same man or woman for 37 years could be tough. Yeah.
So a lot of people get into trouble. And nowadays, porn addiction's probably one of the biggest things out there. So because that it seems to be ruining a lot of marriages.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're comparing your husband or wife to somebody on the screen, and it's not realistic.
Right. Yeah. So that's probably about 70% of my clientele.
So my question is, why the 7-year itch? Why not the 6-year or the 8-year? What is it about 7 years in particular that set people off?
I think people just stop working at it. I think that you can. Still have a loving and great marriage. I when you learn the tools and learn how to do it, and and not get complacent, I think you can really try. I think you fell in love at some point. Why fall out of love? You just got to keep working at it.
I have a buddy who cheated on his wife once in a very long marriage. Was so guilt-ridden that he told her. And then she tossed them out. So if you stray once, is it better not to say anything? Or
ethically, I would say you have to say something.
Really?
Yeah.
But had he not said something, they would have still been together.
Yeah, but there's something about that deception part. I mean,
I got you.
What are you going to do? I mean, if it's eating you alive, then it's really not the best quality of life for you. Basically, you screwed up and you shouldn't have done it in the first place.
Interesting. Anyway, I know you're here to talk music and not sex, so let's go back to the music. If you had one person to see tonight in concert, I would go see Bobby Rush, 85-year-old blues player. I love this guy. He's a showman. Who is the one person you would pay to see tonight?
Tonight?
And why?
Okay. And why? That's a good question. I mean, I've seen a lot of people in a couple different genres. Dead or alive? Are we asking?
No, alive. It's always better when they're alive to see them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Don't want to bring anybody back from the dead. That's a great question. I'd probably, my favorites, are always going to be, what I grew up with, and that's like Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and Eric Johnson, those rock,
right.
virtuosos. I definitely would pay to go see them any day. So, I just grew up with them, and they always have, I always hear them play, and it's something that always gets me. So, so I would definitely go do that.
Somebody online yesterday was saying, what was among your greatest concerts live? And I immediately thought I saw Prince with Larry Graham and Chaka Khan at the Garden. And talk about great guitarists. Prince was unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you think of him as a singer, but he was a great guitarist.
Yeah, great musician all around, really.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
So, what do you have coming up? Any gigs you want to plug? Any tours? Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, we are. Of course, we're playing around the city here. In Pittsburgh right now. There's a band that were big back in the '90s called Rusted Root. They were kind of like an earthy acoustic type band. A lot of my flamenco influence. We're going to actually open up for them July 3rd. Nice. Here in the city, and it's going to be more of a flamenco thing. A couple other things going on in August, like private events, and then we're going to be at the Hard Rock in Pittsburgh in September 19th, I believe. So we're going to play there again. So we're looking forward to playing at the Hard Rock again.
And tell us about the music scene in Pittsburgh. When I think of Pittsburgh, I think of my pro wrestling buddy, Johnny Valiant, who just passed, and Bruno Sammartino was out of Pittsburgh as well. And George Romero, of course, was out of Pittsburgh. But tell us about the music scene.
Yeah, it's growing. I think it's getting better. A lot more venues now. It was pretty sparse before, but now it's starting to come back. So it's a nice thing. It's nice to have places to play, and people actually going out to see live music again. It's really refreshing. It takes a little bit. I mean, we're not there yet, but we're getting there. So that's encouraging, at least.
And speaking of encouraging, I always encourage our listeners to go out and support live music, support live theater, support live everything, because also take your kids by the hand to hear great music. You mentioned Joe Pass. When I was a kid, my parents took me to see him.
Wow. Nice.
When I was a kid, my parents took me to see Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald, Max Roach, The Spinners, Nancy Wilson. I mean, my parents taught me to love live music, and I'm forever grateful. And having a computer or a cell phone or video game, babysit kids is not doing them justice. Take them by the hand to hear great artists like yourself. And what inevitably happens is some kid sitting in the audience goes, I want to do that. I want to play guitar. I want to play like this man, and they're inspired by it.
Yeah, my first concert at the Civic Arena, which is no longer there. My dad took me to see Kansas and Cheap Trick.
Okay, and they're still out there, right?
Yeah. And so that was, and I loved that. It's like that was one of my first moments where I was like, I think I want to do that.
Oh yeah.
And
what's interesting with these old touring bands is sometimes they're impeccable and they're better than they were, like the Zombies, just tremendous. And others you go, oh my God, they should give it up, and it's just the money grab, and it doesn't warrant $500 or $1,000 a ticket or whatever the case may be.
Right. No, I saw Kansas come back earlier this year, and they did a big show, and they sounded amazing. So it was nice to see that.
I'm going to see Santana later this summer. Talk about great guitarist.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Yeah, I haven't seen him yet. He hasn't really come through here too often, so So I haven't made it out to see him yet. But
yeah, Santana's just what he did at Woodstock alone. The guy's immortalized. But
right.
what a tremendous guitarist. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Brady, please give out your social media one last time.
Sure. On Facebook, it's Brady Novotny Music. On Instagram, it's Brady Novotny Official. And Twitter is Brady A. Novotny. So, and then on YouTube, you just type my name in, Brady Novotny, I'll pop up. And Spotify, Brady Novotny.
All right. Thank you so much. And once again, we want to thank Michael Stover from MTS Management Group for setting this up. And best of luck with the new CD. And please come back. And if you're ever in New York, come live in studio. We always have live musicians in-house.
Awesome. Will do. Thank you
so much. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate
Take care.
Okay.
Benjamin, can I get some piano? Come on, son. All right. Oh, baby. Hey, here we go. See, time was I didn't know how to satisfy you.
This guy's a buddy of
and
mine.
neither did you have a clue. You get mad and send me on my way, baby. I call you back and I say, darling, you know how much I love you. Hey, I call you back and say, sweetheart,
yeah,
I'm always thinking of you. All right, let me tell you why. I love what we're doing. Hey, I love what we're doing. Marry more, baby. I love what we're doing.
let's go from place to place.
Hey, I love what we're doing. Get down, get down.
We went to this little bar. There's any legendary players like 80 years old. They just playing in front of 7 people. Music sounds. You want to see a great?
All right, wait a minute. Time was so much madness I put you through. I kept on doing them things I know that I shouldn't do. I kept on making your pretty brown eyes so blue, baby. And I got on my knees and prayed. I said, Father, oh, one in heaven now, please hear my cry. Don't let the little girl walk on by. All right, let me tell you about it. I love what we're doing. Hey, I love what we're doing. Every day, baby. I love what we're doing. And I don't mind, yeah. I love what we're doing. Play on and on and on.
sangre y se me secan los labios, se me nublan los ojos de tanta emoción. Estoy loco en pasión. Baila, 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 bailarina, que me estoy perdiendo en fantasía. Baila, 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 bailarina, que me estoy olvidando, que me estoy perdiendo, que me estoy olvidando de la vida. Como una serpiente se acercó, con ojos llenos de fuego, me miró. Su voz como una caricia, suave como una brisa, me agarró de la mano y me sacó a su baile de amor.
This is the Evan Ginzburg Show at villageconnectionradio.com. And we were listening to Carlton J. Smith, my buddy, doing I Love What We're Doing, and Edwin Vasquez, ballerina. And joining us in studio, we have media expert Erica A.
Glad to be back.
A regular on the show. Yeah. And an avid TV watcher.
Media expert, TV watcher, entertainment tracker,
and
trend follower, not trendsetter.
And what are you watching?
Right now, what am I watching? Not that much. I am very disappointed. Someone asked me, what are you looking forward to? And I felt at a loss. I am looking at the new show that started on Cinemax called Jet. I'm still watching The Spanish Princess. It's got a few more weeks to go. I'm watching a few things.
What is Jet? Don't assume people know any of these shows, because there's 2,000 channels and there's endless content. So tell us about Jet.
Well, it started last week. It seems to be this show about a thief that just got out of jail who has a daughter. But instead of doing what she originally intended, which was to pay attention to her daughter and play a mom, she got sucked right back into the life she escaped. And I'll give a spoiler of the first episode since we're coming up on the third episode. The first episode, someone contacted her, and at the same time, a government agent who knew her is like, "Oh, you're back." And somehow she's torn into going on one little activity where she's supposed to get a ring, and she says, "I won't do it unless you get this other guy." This other guy is in jail, and so they break him out of jail so that they could go to Cuba to steal something.
Okay. Okay.
So, it just kind of
so do you recommend it?
Oh, like I said, it just started, so I'm giving it a chance. It's not jumping off the page at me. It's not like, oh my God, this is the best, most entertaining thing I've ever seen in the whole world. Everyone should be watching it.
Sometimes it takes time for shows to build. I heard many people say Game of Thrones. It took a while to get into it, understand who's who, what's going on.
I admit the first time I watched Game of Thrones, it took me the first few episodes to realize that the Daenerys plot was not a flashback from King's Landing. I thought that there was a blonde girl and a guy with a beard who used to be attractive and now is fat and bloated. I thought those were flashbacks to an earlier plot.
I just remember I'm watching the King, and I'm thinking he's going to be a regular character. Then they cut his head off. I'm like, oh my God!
Cut his head off. No, the King dies. He gets hurt hunting. It's his best friend whose head gets
Oh, his
cut.
best friend. That's right. Yeah. This is going back like 8 years already. Yeah.
More, because there were 8 seasons and we
Right.
2 years. for
Right.
the season. But Game of Thrones.
I'm just like they
and
cut
I
his
know
head off.
You're still. Yeah, they cut a lot of people's
Yeah.
heads off.
And it kind of bounced, and like you saw his eyes blink. It was very disturbing.
And then the next time they mount a clay head on a spike, and they go, look, there's your dad. Look at it.
Yeah, that could
But
be
yeah, now
traumatizing.
they say they are having a spin-off, a prequel. So, who would you want to be in the Game of Thrones prequel? Where would you want it to take place?
I would like you to be in it, and for it to take place in Greenwich Village in the 50s.
No.
No?
it has to take
I'm
place-
wrong?
No. I'm asking where in Westeros.
Okay.
Opposed to Esteros.
I never understood any of that, like especially during the credits where they would have like all those maps, and I'm like, I never could read a map, and this is too fast. I can't absorb any of this.
So you never were able to follow the opening scene?
Not
where the map was
whatsoever.
like, okay, we're going to be here, 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 and here. This is how far
I
away
had
they
no
are.
idea. Well, all I remember was there was like those zombies out in the woods,
And then you, of course, know.
Yeah.
And you were like, I hear it. I don't need the map.
How come Game of Thrones they didn't have like the post-game wrap-up like they do with Walking Dead where...
Well, they did for like 2 seasons.
Oh, they
I don't
did?
think it hit as well.
Oh, I see.
They would do it the following night after, no spoilers.
Right.
There's that rule. Well, they let you have 2 times to watch before they'd air after the Game of Thrones thing. Oh, I don't... Hold on. I will think of what it was called. But it was something where they had 2 guests. And then after they discussed it, they'd have someone who was an expert on Game of Thrones who would come out with a bell. And she would ring it at each of them for every time they said something that was inaccurate. It would be like, no, that wasn't the correct city it was in. It was in this other city that was sort of interchangeable of the free cities.
Walking Dead, when they do the Talking Dead thing, it's kind of like group therapy, and they actually bring out the latest victim who just died on the episode, and they tell the geniuses in the audience, look, she's not really dead. Because they can't fathom that this isn't real.
The Game of Thrones wrap-up show never had any to cast there.
Yeah.
It was just the people who
Now
were
that you
there
mention
to
it,
talk.
I vaguely remember it. I watched it 2 or 3 times.
I want to say it was there for seasons 4 and 5 or 5 and 6.
Yeah, and they had like a cheesy set with... I think that giant map was there, right?
Yes, the giant
That's
map
right.
was there.
That's
and
right.
they would have this computer image of their heads on it so that they would say, this character in this episode is all the way over here. But then at the end of the episode, she traveled to that city instead.
I'm really enjoying Westworld. I think it's brilliant.
We're waiting for season 3.
Yeah.
How many weeks do you think?
Do you
Is it-
remember the original Westworld?
Oh, yeah,
The
Yul
movie
Brynner.
franchise.
That was great.
Yul Brynner.
That was great.
Do you remember the famous Yul Brynner story? He was dying of lung cancer, and he cut a commercial, and he said that if you're watching this commercial, I'm dead. To discourage people from oh yeah,
Yep,
oh
I
yeah,
remember that.
and
Okay, before my time.
and they added a couple of times, and people were so disturbed by it that they took it off. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad. I would be disturbed too.
I saw him
That's
on
as
Broadway doing The
disturbing-
King and I. He was
Okay.
great.
That would be as disturbing as if they invited some of the craziest members of All But That to the new cast. Well, that's something I'm watching. I noticed Nickelodeon brought back another show. They just
What's that?
started All That again.
I have no idea what that is.
All That was like Saturday Night Live, except it was kids. It had a few famous people. Like, out of All That came Nick Cannon,
Yeah.
Came Amanda Bynes. Came Kenan Thompson. It came, and then,
How come none of those kids overdosed? Usually the child actors die.
No, Nickelodeon people actually survived most of them.
They survive. That's good.
I mean, hey, look at it. You look at the cast from Salute Your Shorts. You look at...
I think it's the 60s and 70s kids that didn't fare as well.
Different strokes.
Yeah, they didn't fare too well.
And that was the 80s.
Yeah.
The girl who played the older sister on... Not the Michael J. Fox show, the other one, Growing Pains. She had all kinds of eating disorders and almost died. It went straight through to the 80s and I think the 90s too. There were plenty of crazies, but Nickelodeon seemed to take care of their kids. So yeah, it's in its second episode. It has a musical guest just like Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
And the original cast, a few of them came. And I was like, oh, there they are. Though I don't know if they're going to stay on the show or if just the kids are going to continue.
All I remember ever seeing on Nickelodeon is when they slimed the guest.
Yes.
That's all I remember from that entire channel, its entire history.
I mean, it's an interesting thing. They've brought back Double Dare. Now they've brought back all that. What else are they going to bring back? I know they keep talking about Rugrats is coming or something. They're going to do a live action version? I can't imagine
I like when
that.
we have these long conversations and you bring up 37 shows that I've never seen.
I've only brought up 5 shows.
Yeah.
Right now, I think that's the number. We've went to 1 premium channel show, 1 cartoon, 1 live action sketch comedy, 1 game show, and Game of Thrones.
I was telling people online that WWE TV is it's really like penance for sins I committed in previous lifetimes.
Oh, then stop
it's so
it. Watch it. It's like when I used to watch the CW show Rain. You know it's terrible. It makes no sense. You've got to at some point go, okay, I'll keep it on in the background and just listen, but I don't need to actually kill brain cells.
I have like lesser addictions, like bad WWE TV, pretzels. I've never like shot heroin or anything. Lesser
entertainment
addictions.
can be its own drug. I mean, oh my God! All right, so I'll tell this story. I found In Living Color on one of the cable channels, and I decided to watch. And my mother actually sat and watched with me, and she only made it through like an hour. We watched 2 episodes, and then I turned it off, and she said, I feel like I've lost brain power from that. And I was
actually, some of that was entertaining.
I know.
And they became huge stars, a lot of them.
So many of them. And it was such a great show
Remind the people who's in that.
Okay, Jim Carrey got his start there. Jamie Foxx.
Yeah.
One of the big Broadway people, Alan Greer. No, I'm missing his
David
first.
Alan Greer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, I'm missing his first name.
I interviewed him years ago. Nice guy, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's a brilliant guy. And of course, all the Wayans brothers were there.
Yeah,
Damon Wayans, Kean Ivory Wayans,
they blew
Marlon
up.
Wayans, Sean Wayans.
Jim Carrey is one of these guys. He's very socially active, and people either love him or hate him in 2019.
I think,
you can
be
once you
both.
make your first 500 million, you could safely voice your opinion.
Or you can be both. I think at this point in my life, I might be both. I love him, then I hate him.
Okay.
He's still entertaining.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
How's his show doing? He had a show on HBO.
Oh, Kidding! You didn't watch? Kidding was a great show on Showtime.
On Showtime?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hope it comes back for season 2.
Yeah, I started it, and I still have to go through.
Oh, it was terrifying. It was terrifying, entertaining, and moving all at the same time.
Yeah, which confuses people. It doesn't fit into any box.
It fits into the Jim Carrey box. It was Jim Carrey at his Jim Carreyest. It was Cable Guy. It was him just parodying really scary Mr. Rogers kind of thing. And it was just almost Ace Ventura at the same time with voices, and it was just Jim Carrey. It's a category within itself. I hope it comes back for a second season.
Okay.
Haven't seen any commercials for it, though.
I find it interesting with a lot of these cable shows, they'll only do 10 episodes. Because back in my day when...
well, even in my childhood.
24. They used to do 24 episodes.
Well, that's why the show was called 24, I believe, because they were going to do 24 episodes still, even when the trend ended.
I love 24.
Never got into it.
I like when Kiefer Sutherland would torture the bad guy,
But
one time he tortured the wrong guy, then you felt bad.
And then I liked Designated Survivor, and I was so sad it went to a streaming service. I know it came back for another season, but I have to find it some way.
Here's my ongoing torment. I have pretty much full cable. I don't have Cinemax, but I have most of the premium channels. I have an Amazon Fire Stick. I have a Roku. I have Amazon Prime. Unless I live to like 137, I'm never going to catch up with everything.
Or you need to invest in a second TV set so you can watch more than one thing at a time.
But the ultimate goal is not to watch, it's to create art. That's, it's...
There's also the art of experiencing art.
Look,
to be able to watch someone else's work and relate to it, or to be moved by it, or to...
If it's great, not if it's mediocre, and a lot of it is mediocre. So, if I'm watching something great, I feel like I'm investing my time well. But
okay, so
not
what
everything,
is great? Game of Thrones.
I think Westworld is great. I think Game of Thrones is great. Well, Game of Thrones technically is over.
Technically.
Until the 17 prequels, sequels, alternate universes, and however else they milk it. Early on, I thought Walking Dead was great. Now it's few and far between, but there's occasional episodes. It's not everything is great.
So what about on basic broadcast TV? Anything great anymore?
Not that I could think of off the top of my head.
I mean, right now they're overrun with game shows, and half of the game shows have no rules or something. There's the dropping the ball game, where the balls just drop and you yell at the wall which hole you wish it to go in.
I haven't been into game shows since I was a kid.
Oh, I loved game shows as a kid, and
I used to like Paul Lynde on Hollywood Squares, right, Jim?
They had great game shows when we were younger.
Yeah, Price is Right.
Price is Right is actually still decent. It's still on the air. You can still watch it if you're actually around at 11 o'clock.
What's more exciting than winning a new dryer? I mean, things were simpler back then. Things were simpler.
But I mean, game shows were great. And it's just there's no game to them anymore.
When I was a kid, I would be so happy, like... the guy wanted like a new blender or something. Like now his life has changed forever, and
you didn't have to pay your life savings and taxes on the blender like you do now.
I'll tell you, I think that a lot of Americans,
are materialistic.
One.
Okay.
I think they do not plan well financially, and they're almost a prisoner in their own house, and they're old and they're broke, and they watch TV relentlessly, and I don't think it's the greatest way to live, honestly. I think like I said, I think you should go out and create art and also experience theater and
experience theater, experience classical music, experience dance, experience
everything. Not just sit in front of a box. A computer's a box. A video game's a box.
Well,
a TV's
that's why
a box.
When it was invented, it was called the idiot box.
Yeah. I saw. The problem with me is I've been going to theater literally for almost 50 years, and you get very jaded.
Well,
I saw Glenda Jackson in King Lear the other week, and I thought it was kind of a mess, but her performance was great. I don't regret going. They're in modern clothes. They're reciting Shakespeare. It's kind of campy, and I don't know. It didn't work for me.
Okay. Last week I went to the ballet. New York City Ballet premiered a performance of a ballet based on the story Jane Eyre. It's an old book. It's sort of like the Jane Austen.
I didn't know Jane Eyre could dance. I'm impressed.
Okay. And I went. It was sort of a weird mix of ballet, modern dance, and it reminded me way too much of like ice dancing. The dancing was painful. They kept throwing the girls on their back and just spinning around, and I'm like, this isn't dancing, and I can't see what she's doing. But I was still glad I went.
Speaking of dance,
tell the story of the book. But
I have little expertise with dance, but I love Fosse and Verdon, the miniseries that Fox just had.
Just finished.
It's tremendous.
FX, actually.
FX. Well, isn't that part of Fox? No?
I
FX.
don't know if it is anymore after the Disney merger.
Oh, okay. So anyway, on FX they had Fosse and Verdon, two
Brilliant
tortured artists,
performance.
and
also the performances of the actors. I mean,
it was great.
You look at
It was
Sam
great.
Rockwell. He did a brilliant job bringing the character to life. He's not much of a dancer, but he did try to really embody it. And the female lead, I just know her as Heath Ledger's wife. I can't think of her name right now. You know me, I love names. She actually really danced and went through all the motions.
Yeah, it was done very well, and it was devastating. It was really, I mean, these brilliant people who, you break it down, tortured artists, and but an incredible legacy both of them left. I find it interesting when I talk to somebody younger and they go, I never heard of Gwen Verdon. I never heard of Bob Fosse.
And they brought a legacy, and it's important that they brought it back into the mainstream because no one's heard of anything if it isn't Taylor Swift.
They would have heard of Chicago. They would have heard of,
Cabaret.
Cabaret, of course.
Of course.
But they may not know their names, which is interesting to me
Well,
because
if
as
you're
a
not-
kid,
how many
Bob Fosse and
dancers-
Gwen Verdon were huge.
Oh yeah.
How many
Huge.
dancers do you actually know by name?
Those
you
are
think
probably
of
the
Fred
only two I
Astaire
know.
and
And ranking.
Fred Astaire.
okay.
Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly, Donald O'Connor,
Yeah.
all of them.
Sabian Glover.
Sabian Glover.
But I mean, it's really hard
Bill
to be a
Bojangles
dancer.
Robinson.
Shirley Temple.
Shirley Temple.
But I mean, it's really hard to be a dancer and just be famous as a dancer. You look at Paula Abdul. She was a choreographer and a dancer, and she wouldn't have been anything if she hadn't become a singer, even though she wasn't as much of a singer as a dancer.
They say the greatest music footage ever recorded is James Brown doing the Tammy Show, Tami, and it's like superhuman. And if you watch it closely, the band is applauding him. They got so caught up in it. There's an orchestra behind them, and they're applauding him.
And so instead of playing along, they just start.
No, as he's coming out for the encore, as he's wrapping it up, it's amazing. The Tammy Show. Pull it up on YouTube. You'll thank me. So,
So I've also seen quite a bit of movies lately
like,
in theaters. I saw X-Men: Dark Phoenix, which I
I'm
really
sorry.
wanted to see.
no, how was it?
Not as bad as it seemed to be. I
It
agree
bombed,
with the
though.
rate.
It
Yes, well,
bombed.
so did Men in Black. I don't think people are going to the movies this month. But you look at it, and I was like, okay, it's not as terrible as I thought it was going to be. I agree with the critics. It's a 50-50 kind of rating. It's not as bad as, like, some of the... Like, the last time they made the Dark Phoenix plot, which was Last Stand, should have been it seems like it should have been the last movie, but they made the prequels.
You speak of this with great gravitas.
I'm vested. I care about the X-Men franchise. I'm sad.
How many
that-
were there? 10?
I wanted to say about 12 or 13.
12 or 13? I watched the first two. I'm
Okay,
27
they were
years
very
behind.
Good. Skip the third one, though the third one explains everything because they have to reboot it, but they never actually rebooted it. They made my favorite one, Day of Future Past, where they take the old cast, they take the younger cast in the past, and they alternate back and forth between the past and the future. It's crazy, but it just works.
I watch these films, and unless it's something really special...
Okay, it's not really special.
It's just
see it in the next 10 years.
the last 20 minutes of every film is exactly the same.
It wasn't.
They're flying through the air, they're punching each other,
There
buildings
wasn't.
are breaking,
Okay, a
and
little
I
bit of
just
that.
don't care.
Well, you would appreciate this movie has far less of a final fight scene. I think that's what hurt its credibility and ratings, that people need that bit of action at the end. They need something hitting each other.
Even when the characters die, I'm like, they're just going to bring them back in another movie anyway. I have no emotional involvement most of the time. They go, oh my God, I was crying because the superhero died. I'm like, dude, they're just going to bring it back next year.
Well,
It's like,
that's Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're gonna.
I mean, anything that you make, any movie, TV show, whatever it may be,
If
you
you're gonna
have to care.
If you're gonna kill the characters, you've got to keep them dead.
Oh my God, Godzilla's dead, Mothra's dead. He's dead until the next movie, you know? Come on. It's like, you know what I enjoyed? I saw the Elton John biopic.
Really?
I thought it was
You saw
great. Did
Rocket
you see
Man?
that, Jim? Rocket Man? Elton
No,
John?
not yet. I want to.
I've heard good things about it. Good things.
I'm a casual fan. I saw him once, 30 years ago.
I was never a fan.
I'm an R&B guy, but
I'm more of a hip hop R&B too.
It was a great. I thought it was great. Some people didn't like it because they kind of played with the time frame. This song.
But how about this artist? I mean, the one who played him. Apparently, all the articles say he did most of the singing, and he really, really embodied it. And I find that impressive.
It was from the heart. You know, I didn't care that they had a 1980 song in 1977 in the movie or whatever the case may be. I just thought it was done really well. It reminded me of The Singing Detective. It's almost like he's on all these drugs and alcohol. It's almost like he's hallucinating. And
he's still alive.
Yeah. It's like my wife is watching it with me. She's like, is he still alive? Because he's going to like hell and back in the movie. But
I'll see it one of these days. I was never a fan. Growing up, I was really small, and I found him annoying. There was one video.
Oh, no, he's a tremendous artist.
There was one video on MTV I really enjoyed of his music, and I could watch it even without it.
You can't write off Elton John. He's a brilliant performer, brilliant songwriter.
Well, you're looking at it from two different generations. You guys
nothing to do with it. Great is great. Judy Garland was great. I mean, it doesn't matter what generation.
Yeah, but when you're talking about someone who's experienced it from a completely different perspective and they can't relate
I saw him once. I'm not his biggest fan.
Okay.
But great is great. Right, Jim?
Great can be tolerated.
You can't dismiss Elton John.
I can.
Unbelievable.
He was interesting. He was decent. I never got him. And I was too I was too young to appreciate what he was trying to create. Give me Salt and Pepper and DJ Cinderella any day.
I like hip hop. You can't compare Salt and Pepper to Elton John. Come on. No. And I like hip hop. We're gonna play hip hop later in the show.
So I did see Men in Black. You want to talk mediocre? That was mediocre.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I avoid.
Was there any Elton John songs in that?
No, it took place. There was no music almost ever.
Now that you've lost all credibility, we're going to wrap this segment up.
Why?
Because you don't like Elton John.
All right.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Also saw the zombie movie that came out last week with Bill Murray.
That got mixed reactions. How was that?
It was quirky. People were angry that it was a zombie movie that sort of broke the fourth wall and didn't follow the true premise of a zombie movie. It was close.
I like Jim Jarmusch films, though.
You might enjoy this movie. It's very quirky. It's very strange.
I've enjoyed all his work. I'm sure if you're just looking for blood and guts,
No, there isn't much of that.
Right.
I mean, there is plenty of guts. It was a little too gross for me. I'll admit that. A few times I just covered my eyes and was like, why am I have to be here? Because I was doing it for a favor for someone else. I went and saw it.
You know what I find interesting when I go on social media? That whatever the genre is, there are people that are absolutely obsessed. I mean, obsessed.
Well, yeah,
today,
that's what fans are. I mean, today is a
fan is short for fanatic, and fanatic isn't necessarily positive. Like I saw it today. Listen to this, Jim. A guy post online that if Godzilla were real, he would be urinating like 100,000 gallons of urine a day. And I'm like, dude, you're taking this too seriously.
Well, there are two types of fans. There are
no, really, I read this today.
Okay, there are fans who are obsessed with the concept, and there are fans who are so obsessed that they use it, that they want to apply it to science, and they want to try to understand it better.
Improve it.
What would make you sit and ponder how much urine Godzilla puts out in a day? I mean, aren't you crossing a line into insanity?
He would drown the city.
He would have drowned Tokyo. Instead of crushing Tokyo, he would have drowned it.
No, I don't think that's too irrational. It's no different than when people try to study who would be the strongest dragon, and you take by how fast footage burns a city of like Daenerys and Game of Thrones dragon versus How I Trained My Dragon 3 or Harry Potter dragon or Lord of the Rings dragon. You're like, okay, well, this is how science says things burn. This is fire is judged by the color of the flame.
I think people have way too much time on their hands.
Did you ever see that show on it was like the History Channel or something like that where they would take a shark against a grizzly.
The deadly.
Yeah.
And they would say which one would win
Yeah.
based on their
I
skills.
preferred the show they did that was called Deadliest Warrior. I think it was the same
It was
premise,
the same
but
premise, yeah, I know
but
what
they
you're
did it
talking
with
about.
history.
Yep.
Now they're
Yeah.
doing. Now they're doing. Would Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury beat Muhammad Ali? I'm like, what are you crazy? Come
Well,
on,
isn't that the plot
come
of,
on.
of the last Rocky movie? Where they say that Rocky, if he was alive today, boxing a young boxer, would he be able to outmatch him? And Rocky at like 50 or something
But it
goes
just
back
seems
to
like
the ring.
it just seems like people have too much time on their hands. Instead of pondering stuff that would Batman beat Spider-Man? It's like, dude, it's 37 years old. Don't you have something better to ponder?
So, funny, it's our third reference to a Batman concept.
I saw Batman slippers in the 99-cent store, and I thought
Yes.
this would look good on your boy Randy. Batman
Oh, my
slippers.
friend. Well,
Anyway,
next time I come, I will bring my Batman shirt then. How about that?
there you go.
Because I love Batman.
So anyway, plug anything you want to plug.
Oh, nothing to plug right now. I was like, I wish you would have told me. I would have brought some of my material, my new project I'm writing. I would have done
next
an
time.
excerpt I would have read.
Next time.
Oh, you would love it. It's superheroes. I know how much you love them. But of course, I write in the Cold War.
You want to
so-
know something? I enjoy superhero movies, but I watch it Tuesday night. By Wednesday morning, I've forgotten about it, and I have to be in the mood for it because it's just like it's endless.
And you'll watch
I mean,
any
it's
genre. You don't have an emotional attachment
I
to
enjoy-
one comic book franchise versus another
No,
one.
I enjoyed Wonder Woman. I enjoyed the last Avengers movie. I mean, but it's not life or death to me.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next Wonder Woman movie. It's coming out.
I know wrestling fans who know nothing but wrestling. They exhaust me. It's like they just relentlessly talk about wrestling. I'm like, dude, my head's going to explode. I'm tempted to say, don't you know anything else? Anything else? It's like, wow, did you see that in 1977? And it's like they're fixated. I'm
Well,
like,
in 1977, Adam West was Batman, wasn't he?
yeah. Some guy was saying, like, Adam West sucks, and like all these people turned on him because, like, I'm like,
Well, because he became a has-been and he never got another role. I mean,
that's
I
not
think one of-
true. He did all kinds of series, and
Okay, beforehand.
you do
Not
get
after, though.
typecast.
Yes, he got typecast. I think that Batman the Animated Series
Pull up
described it better.
IMDb. He did plenty of other work,
Okay,
but
I
you
know.
do get typecast.
He's in the first season of Bewitched. In the third episode, he marries a
No,
witch.
he did other
appeared
series.
Okay. He never even did random sitcoms and stuff
He
in the
did.
80s and 70s.
Pull
You
up
don't-
IMDb.
Okay, yes. But I'm saying almost never see him except in my preteen years where he played Adam West or he played a version of Batman from like the 90s
See, you have to
on.
you have to understand the business.
Okay.
Okay. I worked on The Wrestler, so I constantly get offered wrestling movies.
You
It's
get
just the way it
typecast.
works. You get
I
kind of
know.
typecast.
And that's
I
where
did
he
a
made
movie
his
on
money.
Wounded Warriors with the full cooperation of the U.S. military. Okay. I mean, seriously, you have to see it. It's called Teresa Sario Alive Again, full-length documentary. But you know what?
You stick
It
to
did
your
no
strengths.
business. The Wrestler did business. 350 Days did business. Okay?
So you
you get
stick to
kind of
your
typecast.
strengths.
You get kind of typecast. But Adam West did plenty of other work, and he was a quality actor. And you know what disturbs me? I'll go online, and somebody's gone, and like people are like dismissing their talent, dismissing their career. Like Johnny Valiant. Johnny Valiant was a friend of mine. And these guys are like, he couldn't talk and he couldn't wrestle. I go, it's absolute bullshit. The guy was one of the greatest talkers of all time, and he was a very good wrestler. He wasn't, Lou Thez, but he was a very good wrestler. And, don't rewrite history because you're bored at 2 a.m. and you want to, dismiss somebody's career.
Well, one should never start writing things at 2 a.m. in the morning unless you went to bed for 6 hours and that's when you woke up.
They say nothing
It's even when I
good.
used to type, people used to say to me around 2 a.m., What time is it on your time zone? It's time for you to go to bed. You've reached the point where you're not forming full sentences.
They say nothing good ever happened in a club after 2 a.m.
Yeah.
All the best stuff happens at 2 a.m.
No,
it's at 2:15. That's when you
That's
run
when
away.
the beer goggles hit and you go home with the wrong person and you regret it the next day. And I've had experiences where I'm just like, I have to stop because I know this is a mistake, and I leave.
Well, knowing when to leave is always the best time.
Yeah, it's like as the alcohol wears off, you start to realize this is a mistake. I'm getting out of here. Not just appearance-wise, you realize the person's nuts. So that's back in my single days, but now that
you're happily married.
Well, now we have Brady. I could ask, sex therapy tips from this guy.
Back to Salt and Pepper. Let's talk about sex.
Yeah. Anyway, Erica, plug anything you want to plug.
Oh, nothing right now. Look me up on Facebook, though. It's my name, Erica, Ericka, last name Asserson, or email me any projects, video work, or writing, or anything. Erica.a268@hotmail.com, and I'm around. Glad to be here. I'm glad I got to entertain you a little because the couch is a little bare at the moment.
That's right. We were quiet on guests because we had a last second cancellation. I won't blame the guilty and stay on good terms with them.
Well, at least you made it in my car.
I always make it. That's the point. When guests no show at the last minute, it's like there's always a way to make it if you choose to. But we will.
Not if the Earth exploded.
If World War III happened, I would understand. But otherwise, I'm old school. The show must go on. I've done radio in snowstorms, blackouts. If you commit, you show up. Right, Jim?
I agree.
Can't do radio without guests. So, on that happy note, we're going to play some more videos, independent music. Cooley High, my buddy, doing Who, and Robert Ross, Drowning Man. Two different songs.
When I say Cooley, you say high. Cooley high, Cooley high. Yeah. That's what I said. I'm a Brooklyn baby. Look at the gravy. Otherwise, I leave the joint hot like 80s, baby. I'll leave the cold like the bullshit. If they hit you with a great story, told from a dude, not rule, but I just have right. Don't put a piece of the whole apparatus. When it comes to the door, did a little bird, but I never got caught with that imperious sound. Hold that, you my cup of coffee in town. Ignite you to put the brain on ease. We does it when you do that. Now, if you still trying to understand why people can be call me Cooley High, Cooley High, Cooley High, truly high. How you doing? Good to see you again, my friend. Got street, you can see you on the bench. Send this little signal to your sit. That reaction to the track. Nothing like that, sun, moon, and stars. Hold on. We ain't even dealing with the planetary problems. Always want to point them out, but never want to solve them. Niggas want to rob them. Grind like a calcified third eye word. Already be good. What's the five process? Look that will hit you with me. Cause please look in the right direction. You stepping in the pile of doo-doo that's bigger than you. If you hear me in third type of freestyling, it might just be that Cooley high, Cooley high, Cooley high, Cooley high. What's the earth and the music gonna be cool? Better than another body niggas singing blues with no shoes on, playing football and the ball. Niggas only know how to act like an animal. When they win the simple Satan sound, they round up on the page of around. Double booties and shit shaking in their pocket. Chicks in the mix when the plug in their socket. You can front it for you, you know what it is. You think about it, just puzzles of how you feeling. With your head standing for the right to fight the ceiling. Niggas need the love side of head and they feeling. If you hear me dropping, you probably be like, hey yo, that Cooley high, Cooley high, Cooley high, Cooley high. Off like for whatever book you want. If you're gonna see you, the answer is no. One layer won't do you, need another coat. Now submit that to your CD great close to your CD. Database, double to the database of music. You did it for all music. Music, Mario, what's the name of another mother? I'm gonna have my money. Like toxic, you wanna shake you or you sunny. Better be tough about the weather, you big dummy. Supposed to get by the rest, can't you think money? Cause I don't give a fool on you about who, but if you still trying to figure out who I am, know just ask I'm Cooley high, Cooley high, Cooley high, Cooley high. Yeah. Thank you very much. That is my
The great Robert Ross and Adam Gussow, Drowning Man. And Robert Ross is a buddy of mine. He's currently based out of Florida, and he's still out there playing the blues. Robert Ross, and before that, Cooley High, who's moved to Vegas. These are all New Yorkers who have created great music for many, many years and have moved on to bigger and better places. And this is our world-famous wrestling segment. And just last night, I was in ring with Team Splendid at the Elegant Elks Lodge for NEW Wrestling. And we were the villains, and it's always fun for me to torment, 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds at ringside and various other folk. I come out as the chauffeur for Team Splendid. So Team Splendid has a bodyguard and a chauffeur, and my voice is a little hoarse from yelling at the mutants at ringside, as Bobby Heenan used to say. But we had a good time with NEW Wrestling, and we will be back. And I took my wife, and she got a kick out of the whole thing, just seeing me performing in character. And to me, going to the Elks Lodge, which is about 10 minutes from my house, is like going to Cheers. You know everybody, and they greet you warmly. And there's actually a bar there with $3 beers. It's old school. So you have a beer or two and relax. And then you go in the ring and perform. And quite the evening at the Elks Lodge. And it's interesting. I always say that as someone who's been around wrestling for nearly a half century, you can always kind of point out, these are the guys who are going to make it. And off the top of my head, because there were 87 guys on the card as usual, Hamlet Hertzu is going to make it. This guy's going to make it, and he's got a great gimmick, great look, great charisma. He could wrestle, a total package. And Super Nitro I was very impressed by, and various others. But we had a great time with Team Splendid, and we shall return to a arena near you. Shout out to Chris Michaels and Bobby C. And speaking of Bobby C, his buddy Rocky King is in need of a kidney transplant, and I'm going to read this briefly. William Boulware is one of the over 115,000 individuals on the national waiting list of patients waiting for a life-saving organ transplant. Rocky is waiting for a kidney transplant at Emory Transplant Center in Georgia. So please keep this in mind. He's a former wrestler. You saw him with NWA. He was homeless before he began his wrestling career, and just a beautiful human being. He's done a lot for the community, and just keep Rocky King in mind. And for more details, you can call Robert Semier at 917-742-0428, 917-742-0428. And please help out Rocky King, who has helped a lot of people in his own right. And special thanks to Michael Monty and Jim Phillips for doing a Rocky King DVD with many of his classic matches that we're going to present to him sometime in July. And also coming up, it's IWW's Breakthrough, June 29th, and this is at the Martin Luther King High School, 6002 Maspeth Avenue in Maspeth, Queens. And you'll see Logan Black, Killian McMurphy, Isaiah Wolf, etc., so on. And that's, once again, IWW, Imperial World Wrestling's Breakthrough, Saturday, June 29th at Martin Luther King High School. Doors open at 6, show starts at 7, and very cheap night out for some great independent wrestling. And we urge you to support independent wrestling, independent film, independent music, of course, which we've emphasized today. And you could skip some of the $300 million superhero movies and risk the wrath of Erica Ray. So, I'm kidding. Watch Outlander. Erica A. speaking from off camera. So, Anyway, tonight is the WWE pay-per-view Rematch Mania, which is the sequel to Saudi Blood Money 3, and which was the worst pay-per-view in the history of mankind, where Goldberg and The Undertaker destroyed their legacy in about 8 minutes. So I'm kidding, but anyway. If we speak wrestling, we must speak of Monty and the Pharaoh every Thursday night at 8:05. And these guys are like the great comedy teams of the past, Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and Costello. I did a TV interview the other night with Tito Santana. We did a 1-hour interview in the 350 Days Producers over at Rutgers University. For New Jersey Discover, and you could check that out as well. And one of the guys working the studio on camera, the guy was a double for Lou Costello. I mean, physically, facially, his hair, the guy was a double for Lou Costello. It was. If they ever did a movie about Abbott and Costello, I'm calling this guy. He'd be perfect. And they say everybody in the world has a double. You ever hear that, Jim?
Yes.
Yeah, somewhere there's a guy who looks just like you, and you just hope he doesn't commit a crime, because that happens sometimes.
That's crazy.
No, really, they like a guy will commit a crime, and then they come and nab you because you look just like him. So.
That was an episode of Bull last season.
But you have distinctive tattoos, so I think you'd be okay.
Yeah.
You'd be okay.
Good.
But every so often, they'll lock a guy up for like 33 years, and then they'll go, "Oops. We're sorry, we made a mistake. We're letting you out, and we're going to compensate you with like, 72 grand or whatever." The guy lost like $8 million worth of income. So, actually, some of these guys do not make as much money as people think. No, seriously. Seriously. And the biggest crime that people are not aware of is if there's nursing home abuses, elderly abuse, somebody kills your 83-year-old granny, you bring the case to the lawyers, and they're kind of like, well, she was 83, her life isn't worth that much anyway. No, really.
My life's double. My wife found that on her Instagram feed.
Who's that?
That's my life's double.
So this is no relative. Guy that just looks like you.
That's Tommy Lee.
Oh, Tommy Lee, the rocker.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just like me.
Yeah, you're better looking.
My wife was going through her newsfeed. She's like, "What's my husband doing in the pool?"
I can see a strong resemblance.
I blew it up. You got to make it smaller. So,
His face looks puffier than yours.
He partied harder. See, it was like this when she saw it.
I could see a very strong resemblance, but he looks like he's been to hell and back. I mean, I kind of get it, but.
But yeah, there is. I think that's true. There has to be. If you think about it, it'd be crazy not to think that there's a double out there.
So, how old is he?
He's 58, I believe.
Okay, so yeah, he looks older.
He's older.
Yeah, he looks older. He's it's tough partying with Pamela Anderson and endless models, and
It's a rough life.
It's rough. So yeah, I have to try that one day. Just like hit the lotto and destroy my life. You start dating like 20-year-old strippers and just like destroy everything. Like lose your wife, you lose everything. They have stories like that. Guys hit like $100 million lottery. It's the worst thing that ever happened to them.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, because I'll tell you a great story. And again, I won't name names. I had an ex-girlfriend. It's a true story. Ex-girlfriend. The father cheated on the wife, on the mother, and so nobody spoke to him afterwards. The marriage dissolved, and the father was underneath the car, and the jack slipped and crushed him to death. Okay, it's a true story. I couldn't make this up.
The odds of that.
And the jack slipped while he was under there, and she had not spoken to him in years because he screwed up the marriage and cheated on Mom. Right. So she had this whole guilt thing, because she hadn't spoken to Dad. His head got crushed under the car. So speaking of traumas, anyway. So the moral of the story is talk to Dad even if he dicks over Mom. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so what we're going to do about now is, let me do another quick couple of plugs. Here's a book from one of our recent guests, Darren Pouchowitz, Good Advice from Professional Wrestling. And I have to remember one day to bring all the wrestling books over here because I have 137 wrestling books that authors give me, and I forget to bring them in to plug them. But here's one of them, Good Advice from Professional Wrestling. Here's my advice to professional wrestling fans. At 3 a.m. in the morning, don't post how much you miss Chris Benoit because it's really creepy and you're going to scare people, okay? Don't do I miss Chris at 3 a.m. because he murdered his wife and kid, okay? Thank you. That's your public service. That's good advice from Uncle Evan about professional wrestling. Actually, it's interesting when you really sit down and talk to people, what they've learned from being around wrestling and wrestlers. Johnny Valiant used to teach me, get to the place, get to the venue, because anything could happen. Trains could break down, planes could be delayed. Just get there. That's the first advice. Travel light, because it's hard enough traveling constantly. Don't bring 87 pounds of stuff, because it's only going to make everything harder. Etc. so on. But this book will go into even greater detail. Good advice from professional wrestling. And I
like that cover.
Yeah.
Kind of
yeah. It's your boy Scott Hall. Your boy Scott Hall, who walked out before the interview was over.
Okay, I'll talk to you guys.
Yeah. Who traumatized poor Jimmy Farrow?
My God, man.
Yeah.
I never saw anything like it.
Yeah. So. What can I say? It's funny. I've done thousands and thousands of interviews. I've done radio and TV for 29 years, and I can't remember too many people who were like downright rude. But sometimes guys are just they don't have much to say.
You might ask them the wrong question, or they get a bug in their head, and they just. I think that's what happened with that interview.
It's funny. I would interview some legendary wrestlers like Lou Albano, and sometimes they were still like kayfabing. They're protecting the business, and they wouldn't open up. Yep. And I've had some experiences that weren't great, but I don't remember anybody like physically like leaving before it's over, or
right. Or fighting with the host. And.
I think there's a good movie to be made with Marty Jannetty.
Oh, I think so, because I think we would be a good part in that movie.
Yeah, it would
the station itself.
It'd be like leaving Las Vegas. Remember with Nicolas Cage? Yeah. Party Marty. And speaking of Marty Jannetty, he is in 350 Days. And we just had a Calgary screening with Bret Hart in attendance. And we just opened on iTunes in Australia. And we've pretty much been in the top 20 on Amazon for about 3 months. So it's been quite a ride. And we hope you will support 350 Days. If you're a fan of Bret Hart, Superstar Billy Graham, and speaking of Superstar Billy Graham, it's interesting. He's gotten a lot of heat because... What do you think of this, Jim? He said on his Facebook page, he has medical issues. He's in a lot of pain. He's 75 years old. And he's like, please help me. And, if you're not willing to help me, I'm going to unfriend some of you. And some people felt that crossed the line. And I'm kind of like... You're 75, you're in pain, and, when you're in constant, you should know, you're in a lot of pain yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I think you just say what's on your mind.
Stupid things, and because you're in your own head a little bit. That's, I could see saying it, and then maybe, did he retract it at all? Or
No, he stuck with it, and I'm kind of like, okay, these wrestling fans have $5,000 for WrestleMania,
Right.
and AEW's having a big show, and it's $190 ringside, and they're like, "This is really cheap."
Yeah.
$190 ringside. This is really cheap. So I'm kind of like, why not give the guy $5 or $10?
Right.
I don't think it's that big a deal. I mean, so I'm kind of, part of me is really with him. Maybe there would have been a more diplomatic way to say it.
It's a tough situation. Is he collecting money for procedure or just to live?
No.
'Cause that's never ending.
For the medical expenses.
That's terrible.
So I mean, they forget he's 75 years old in constant pain. So. I was with him, and a lot of guys kind of turned on him.
Yeah, it's those medical bills. It's terrible. How people, when they get older and they don't have insurance, how that's the end. That could destroy you. How do you get out of that hole?
They don't.
It's impossible.
Or you just pay it off, for the rest of your life.
$10 a month. I think you're allowed to pay.
Yeah, for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And there's a lot of ageism because all the comments were he's old and he's angry. I'm like, what does his age have to do with it? Sick is sick,
Right.
Pain is pain. But anyway,
Terrible.
I'm endorsing Bootsy Collins for president. By the way,
Nice.
he even though he's not running, I'm endorsing him anyway. There's 37 people running.
I like him already. I mean, I think we should bring hats back, and he seems to. Like
Bootsy,
the hat.
right? Bootsy
Yeah.
played with George Clinton. I love
like
Bootsy. He's one of the greatest bass players in history, and him and Larry Graham. So I think we need Bootsy in the White House in 2020. 'Cause the Democrats will eat their own, as they always do. There's 23 or 4 guys running, and then they all attack each other, and
That kind of like brings all the skeletons out. They're all going to, destroy each other. It's
they never learn.
terrible.
They never learn, and so we need a great bass player in the White House.
Sneak in, yeah.
That's right. So what we're going to do is go to some more music, and Carsten Radke from Germany will be performing in studio in August right here at Village Connection. Virtuoso jazz player, and this is very special. Check it out. We are back with the Evan Ginzburg Show at villageconnectionradio.com. And we are rapidly running out of time in the show. I just want to acknowledge I am writing for ProWrestlingStories.com, JP Zucker. I have a new article there. And also for the Gorilla Position, my buddy Jim Phillips and various other talents at the Gorilla Position. So check out those, and it's there's a lot of stuff coming up in New York if you enjoy the arts. Today, Sheila Ree and Music Soul Child are playing at Flushing Meadow Park, absolutely free. And Sheila Ree, of course, with Prince, and her dad's the legendary Coke Escobedo, who has been out there who was out there forever. And Sheila Ree is 60-ish, and she's tremendous.
I can't believe she's 60-ish. I remember she was great.
She still looks great too. 60's the new 40 if you see Sheila.
I'll bet.
Yeah. So what do you have coming up, Jim?
Oh man.
What's new at the station?
We have summer. Summer's gonna be fun. Might do a few morning shows again.
Morning shows.
That always gets things going. We did that. Haven't done it in a while. And of course, it's summertime, so I have to have my annual surgery.
Yeah.
Summer for the last 4 years, I've had a surgery, so I'm having one of those, and yeah.
My wife is having a left hip replacement in a few days, and it is not pleasant. She had a car wreck 20 or so years ago.
Like a new woman.
Yeah, it's just the stress of going through all the pre-testing and all of this, and
Yeah, the hips. There's pretty much. I think they get you on your feet within 24 hours.
Yeah, they said she'll sleep overnight, be out the next day, but you always have in the back of your head something could go wrong, and
I go through it every time, man. I don't like it.
See, I tell people if you wake up in the morning, and let's leave the listeners, the viewers, with this. You wake up in the morning and you open your eyes and you could see. Not everybody can see. Okay? You get out of bed and you walk to the bathroom, the kitchen, whatever. Not everybody could walk. Not everybody can walk. Okay? You hear the birds singing. Not everybody can hear. Not everybody can hear. Etc. so on. And you're functioning, you're mentally okay, you don't have Alzheimer's, you don't have some dreaded, horrible ailment, and you're doing better than most of the world. And people get very caught up in their problems, but there's always somebody doing better, there's always somebody doing worse. And Jim's had major surgery after major surgery after major surgery. I just had my mother and 10 friends die in a pretty brief two or so year period. So, if you're not going through things like that, you're probably doing pretty well. Yeah, you're probably doing pretty well. If the biggest thing troubling you is you don't like the new Batman, your life is pretty good. Your life is pretty good. I see people signing petitions. I didn't like the last episode of Game of Thrones. I'm like, listen, Peter Pan, deal with the real world. The real world. They're signing petitions. I don't like Batman. I don't like Game of Thrones episode. They killed a character on Walking Dead. Get a life. Really, get a life. Come on. Am I right, Jim?
I think so.
Oh, man. It's like the older you get, you kind of you have some kind of wisdom from life experience, and is it really that important who plays Batman? It's I'm laughing, but people
do lose sleep over it.
yeah, and
it's great.
The mass hysteria over some of this, they got white kids, wearing Black Panther costumes for Halloween. Kirby and Stan Lee were white guys who created the characters. There's real racism in the world. There's real anti-Semitism. There's real xenophobia, homophobia. They're worried about kids wearing Halloween costumes. Choose your battles. Choose your battles. How am I right? Is that ridiculous?
It's unreal.
Then the cast from Black Panther is saying it's okay that white kids are wearing our costumes. It's flattering. You're not a culture bandit if Marvel Comics and white guys created the characters. Please. I'm going to do one last rant before we wrap up this show. Music are notes. They're notes. Okay? Klezmer is an Eastern European Jewish art form. Black players play klezmer. It's okay. If white players rap or do R&B or blues, don't look at it as being culture bandits. They love and respect the art form and are honoring it. Just stop. Choose your battles. There's real racism in the world. Not some white guy who loves Howling Wolf, and is honoring him. Come on, please. That's why I do radio, because it's cheap therapy, and it keeps me sane. It keeps me sane. And shout out to Mr. Big and Bobby C and Chris Michaels and Monty and the Pharaoh and Jim Phillips and all my buddies and who help keep me grounded somehow, and everybody else. The one thing I learned when you're on stage, Jim, is don't start thanking people, because there's always somebody who's like, how come you didn't thank me? I got 5,000 friends on Facebook. I can't thank you all. It's a 2-hour show. But this is yours truly trying to fill 2 hours when the guests no show. So nice. anyway, Jim, anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
Nope. I just hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day. I'm going to play a couple of 350-day videos before we end. Okay, great. And we want to thank Erica A. for making this happen, and for Brady as well for being our Skype guest. And it did go a lot smoother. Yeah. I get nervous with Skype because I've done it over the years. It usually works great as long as you get it set up beforehand. Okay, so we'll do more Skype in the future. The problem with Skype with like legendary wrestlers is, they're 103 years old and they don't know how to do Skype. So, I could interview a lot of guys if they knew how to do it. Right. But anyway, here's some promos for 350 days, and that'll about wrap it up, folks. Thank you. And if you can, the sponsor.
The wrestling fan, they loved you or they hated you. If the fan loved you, they couldn't do enough for you. They want to buy your meal, they want to buy your drink. I think it was one of the main reasons that, whenever I stepped into the ring, I wanted to give back. I wanted to satisfy their reason for coming out and watching me wrestle.
I tell you what, I treated fans with respect and they loved me back. Whether I was a heel or a babyface, it didn't matter.
I learned right from the get-go with my parents that it was to appreciate every single fan that you got, everyone. You know, I think that's one of the reasons I've had longevity in wrestling is that I always treated my fans with a lot of respect.
They wanted to kill me trying to get to my car, and they always knew I was in a Cadillac or something, and it was, you were in fear for your life sometimes.
The New Jersey crowds were always great in the Boston Garden. It was dangerous at the Boston Garden.
The fans were believers in that era. They believed the doggone thing was real. And they were some of the fans were very violent.
I look back on it and I'm saying, well, you put up a lot of you know what. But you know something? That's what drove me to do it. Because the more those people hated me, more this I made.
I was being punched and kicked, and I was having beer thrown on me. I was being hit by chairs.
How angry do you want to make your wrestling fans? How much do you want to butcher up your baby faces until they're all bleeding and they're being beaten by 8 or 10 guys? I mean, how far can you push an audience before they lose it and then you have the Alamo kind of thing?
Play with people's heads, you know. You got to play with their minds. You got to play with them. Psychology. Because that's how you manipulate people. And that's what I do. That's what I did for a living. I manipulated you when you were a kid. I know I did. Because you probably didn't like me. Or you might have liked me because I was that way. And a lot of people did. A lot of people didn't. Thank you for the living I made at it, people. You were very good to me.
Say, you're Bobby Rivers, right?
Bobby barely registers and nods while he looks around for women.
I love how you beat Willie Dean tonight. I hate that guy. You know, I can't.
Bobby looks at the bar and sees Willie Dean talking to 2 girls.
Hey, Chris, kayfabe.
He looks at the fan.
Sorry, man, we stay here. There's going to be a fight. You know what I mean? Let's go, Chris.
Chris asks, why didn't we stay? There wasn't going to be any fight.
Listen, brother. Bert Ironside's rule number 1. Baby faces and heels do not socialize.
Why?
It's all about protecting the business. You don't tell your 5-year-old that there's no Santa Claus, and faces and heels do not sit in a bar full of marks drinking together.
Kings of the Ring is the first audio drama podcast based on wrestling. Search Kings of the Ring from any podcast app or kingsotr.com.
They're all dead. The lines cut off inside my head. I left here like a broken man with no idea of where I stand. Oh, my mind clear. Lord, I shed all of my tears. Oh, now baby, I was just waiting here while you moved on.
man has already won.
Oh, my mind clears. Lord, I shed all of my tears.